welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa. Today is a Wellness Wednesday. We've got Dr. Reg McDaniel coming to talk to us. I'm going to let him lead on this one. I'm not even sure how to pronounce this word, but when I was looking up the image for it, it's something about our muscle and our brain talking through cells or something about this. So we'll be right back to learn a lot more about health and wellness with Dr. Reg McDaniel. Right after this, give us a like and share the video. Welcome back, Dr. Reg. Great to have you.
Thank you.
So is it myokines?
That's exactly right.
All right. Great job for me.
Myo meaning muscles.
Okay.
And kines mean action, like kinetic energy. But that's what that word is derived from. Kines, I guess that's from Latin rather than Greek. Your mouth goes up and down when you do Greek words, but if it flows out, it's usually Latin, and it just kind of goes out. But if you'll give the first slide, I'll start talking about it so you can see the word there. I presume, like me, you have heard for years, anyone that's listening, that exercise is good and helpful to your health, and that everybody should exercise and get activity. And I can recall multiple times saying that you should be at least the amount of walking 3 miles 3 times a week. You ought to have at least that much exercise, whatever you're doing, which is kind of hard to translate from if you're swimming or if you're doing the housework or whatever it may be. But over and over again, the exercise is so important. Well, about 20 years ago, some scientists said, I wonder why exercise is so good for health. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And one of the basic principles that you may or may not be aware that I have come into is that all our cells release molecules that influence other cells, not just like the hormones that most people know that they circulate right around and influence not only the sex organs, but the rate at which things go in and out of the cell membranes. And the fact is, in the book, it frequently says that cells talk to each other. Okay. Well, the talk implies audio, and there's no sound going on between the cells. And it's more like something that I find out very few people even remember, IBM cards, which used to be, you would receive them in the mail to write on it what your numbers are on your electric meter, and then it would go in the mail, and they would punch that card with a machine, and whatever you wrote down would be into the language that the computer could understand. But those IBM cards, which have been replaced by a keyboard, is more like what cells send to each other, but they don't send IBM cards. They send molecules that are hooked together that have information on them and impact. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is something that just really, when I began to stumble into this, I had no idea that, much like the people that write about this say, it's for decades, everyone thought that muscles just were organs of contraction that are attached to the bones that allow us to be mobile. And that's just all it was thought about it. But again, some scientists said, well, why is exercise so good for your health? Well, that's what we're going to talk about now. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Now, I told you that this is for thousands of years, everyone thought just that muscles were part of the whole part of the body. However, we've had uh, Greek and Hebrew thinkers, which are listed there, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and the Hebrew prophets that at one time talked about that, like the body, the mind, and spirit are all integrated. But as science developed, we kind of developed this idea that we have all these different organs. And a French philosopher was noted for saying, I think, therefore I am. And then Sigmund Freud, a Jewish German, divided the mind into the id, the ego, and the superego. But yet, originally, all of these things were thought to be part of the whole that is the human being. Well, this separation into different organs and different functions came along, and now we're getting back to how all these different areas of the body interact. And I have a book here. It's titled "You Are the Placebo Effect," which answered some questions that had been bothering me ever since I was a medical student about how what a person thinks, how it can affect the rest of the body, positively and negatively. And that's really addressed in that book, You Are the Placebo Effect, because our mind, which is the function of the brain, is sort of like a super chip that influences all the organs. And if you stop and think about it, somebody can say something or something can happen and it embarrasses you or it makes you mad and your face will turn red. The little blood vessels on your face will swell up and you'll turn red because of what you were thinking. And it may not even have been a correct thought. And also, if the scientists found out if you had a tube down in the stomach, that what you think can change the amount of acid in the stomach and the motility of the GI tract. But all these things are getting more to, I would say, the integration of all the parts of the body communicate with each other with molecules. Not they don't talk to each other. There's no audio. It's by sending molecules, and so I guess with this in mind, we shouldn't have been so surprised that the muscles send out molecules. It's what we're going to talk today. These myokines, that are molecules that affect other organs. Next slide, please.
Okay.
That we will be talking about the skeletal muscles, which for a long time were thought just for locomotion of our body. But we're going to find out with this, as I say, information. This blew my mind, and I want to share it with you because it's important to know the ability to relax and take life as it is and not to be this tense all the time and all. And these molecules that are sent between cells, a general term for them is cytokines. Cyto meaning cell, and kines activity. So cell activators are what these molecules from the different organs that through the circulation of the blood in the serum hit little receptor sites on different cells on their membrane and can influence the activity of distant organs. Next slide, please. Now, I've shown here that difference in structure, that this myokines are cell activators. And looking at the first slide that says skeletal muscle, you can see that there's the little dark spots are the nucleus where the chromosomes are, but there's an awful lot of cell space, as you see on the cross section there, that the little dots that look like they're just spread all through there are just on the outside, and there's an awful lot of material, of cell material in the middle. If you go to the thyroid gland, you can what looks like big round lakes is actually thyroglobulin, but the cells that make that secretion that's picked up by the blood to influence the rate at which cells metabolize, you can see that there's not much cytoplasm for each nucleus, the little dark spot. And the same thing with the adrenal cortex. It's not the same magnification, but you can see the pink in the background that there's just a small amount of cytoplasm around each nucleus, just like in the kidney tubules, which function to for the fluid balance in the body and to get rid of certain molecules and to retain certain molecules like sodium and potassium, which are the electrolytes. But the amount of cytoplasm around the nucleus is kind of similar to the thyroid and the cortex. There's a lot more nucleus and a lot less cytoplasm, whereas I was saying in the muscles, there's an awful lot of cell structure that showed up particularly in the cross sections. And then on the gut lining cells, the tip of them looks like there's there, but most of that is mucus that the lining cells are making. And the nuclei don't have just a lot of cytoplasm around them where it's active, but boy, the muscle has a lot of cell structure, the cytoplasm, which could have a lot of activity. Now, what you can't see in this magnification is little striations, they call it striated muscle fibers that contract, which is that part of locomotion. But the point I'm emphasizing here is that the muscle cells, skeletal cells, have an awful lot of cytoplasm with structures in it that can be the source of what we're going to get into about myokines. Next slide, please.
Oh, why is it not loading that page? Huh. Let me try to refresh it and see if it will load again. That's very strange. Yeah. Let me try that again. Here we go. Let me try it again. There it goes.
Yeah. But I told you before that all cells communicate with other cells by releasing small molecules that carry information. And we have previously talked about the active ingredient from the aloe called aloase mannose or acetylated mannose, that it is 9 molecules of this in the second step of cellular synthesis, which is called endoplasmic reticulum, or ER, that this makes a domain that's 9 molecules in 3 chains that's present on the membrane of all the cells. And I want to emphasize all the cells because this domain is for instructions that go out and all the cells work together. And I frequently say that the helix of the DNA that you see in magazines and all is like a biocomputer, and that the materials that are made by these cells that are circulate around, like in this case of aloe, it fosters a condition called homeostasis, which is balance within all the cells during the early phase of the cells. See, the cells have cycles just like we as human beings have cycles. We sleep at certain hours a day, we're awake other hours, we eat at certain hours, we go to the bathroom at certain times. And so as we age, is a cycle also from childhood to adulthood. So being in a cycle shouldn't be too hard to grasp that cells have a cycle, and the early S1 phase of the cycle is where this instruction domain is so effective to get all the substances inside the cell, that if you're going to get rid of waste material, you want to get it down to a low level. If you're going to get nutrients in, that you bring those in to a optimal level. And the genes are turned on to do this in the S1 phase. And this molecule from the aloe plant fosters this. But this is just one example, and that affects all the cells in the body at this S1 phase to get in balance. And this is not a new idea, homeostasis. The father, he's called the father of human physiology, Dr. Hans Selye, called this period of balance in the cells that this molecule from the aloe plant supports, is homeostasis, or balance inside the cell. And so these cells throughout the body influence each other and send messages to increase, decrease, or modify a target cell's function. And that's what we're going to find out about the skeletal muscles and the things that they do. And I emphasize how complex the structure was and how much additional intracellular activity there, in addition to the nucleus that has the genes in it to run the machinery inside the cell. Next slide, please. Now, this emerging knowledge of myokine, if you look at this, what this is each color is a different nation. And the size of it is, as you go over to the left, the first indication is 10 papers, and it goes up to, I believe it's 300 papers. And the code is that the blue at the bottom are papers published in the United States, and the gold there is papers published in China, and then there are other nations there, the number of patients. But before the year 2003, there were virtually no papers about myokine. Everybody was just thinking muscles just move the bones and are a source of locomotion. But these are papers that I'm going to show you what's in these papers in the following slides of what they began to discover when they asked the question, why does exercise improve health? Next slide, please. Now, this is a slide. In the middle, we have a bundle of skeletal muscle, and we have all the arrows going out about as the textbooks say, there's crosstalk between the muscle and the brain and the little blood vessels that I mentioned before. There's the lipid stores in the body are influenced. The cells that are circulating the blood, the white cells, particularly the macrophages, are influenced by muscle activity. The kidney function is influenced, as a GI tract. And we've got the pancreas there next to the GI tract. Then it shows that the liver's influenced, and even the cells in the bone are influenced, because we're constantly breaking down bone cells and generating new bone cells, and the exercise influences these. Next slide, please.
Okay.
This slide actually shows you the little myokine molecules that are actually being sent to all these different things. And one of the things that really uh, surprised me is to the brain, one of the most principal myokines that are produced is a brain neurostimulating molecule, and it influences regeneration of brain cells and to make them function more accurately. And fact is, one of the real key things is that runners talk about being stimulated by getting a high by exercise. Well, it's this release of neural brain factor from the muscles influences the brain to work better. And this is true for all these little molecules that each one of them, there would be a paper on that previous graph that somebody in somewhere in the world, that's the reason we had so many different colors, is that this was worldwide research, because when they first started finding them in the 2004, people began to look and finding in each of these little squares or rectangles represents a paper that's been published that shows this influence that are released from the muscles during exercise. And fact is, I was just reading last night that it was talking about that the vitality of the human body is very strongly influenced by the myokines that are released with exercise. But this is part of the answer to why exercise is so healthy, because of all these different cells being stimulated or suppressed, if that's appropriate, but mostly stimulated to function better. Next slide, please. Now, an important thing about the myokines is we've got two colors here, kind of yellow to the left and bluish to the right. And weight exercises, where you try to get to how heavy can you lift something, stimulates one group of genes more than other genes, whereas aerobic exercise, which is walking, running, swimming, where you're not lifting, but you're just activity, it activates other cytokines and genes, and it's more like energy to influence the mitochondria and the functions of the bone marrow to stimulate red cell production and white cell production with the aerobic exercises. But the weight exercise is more of a anaerobic function. It causes hypertrophy of muscles, and healing is fostered more by weightlifting. And it's a different type of genes. So this is one of the reasons that oftentimes if you go to a gym, they will say on certain days you can lift weights, but on these other days you get on the treadmill, which would be your aerobic exercise. You don't want to just do one type of exercise. You want to stimulate all these different myokines to improve the function of organs that are far distant by all those little molecules that were in the arrows and the little boxes that we showed on the previous slides, that are information molecules that are sent to distant organs. Next slide, please. Now, this is more about papers that have been published when they're trying to find out, well, why does weightlifting and how does weightlifting improve the anabolic healing and hypertrophy of muscles. And each of these little arrows in here would be a different paper that we showed in that thing of where people, scientists would use cell cultures and instruments with people uh, just weightlifting. What goes on that is the activity of the genes to release these different myokines versus the aerobic exercise. Next slide, please. I was just showing you some of the details that all these papers that we were showing in the graph that started in 2004. And this is a thing, you notice the person there is not lifting weights. All they're doing is just moving, moving the muscles, not against a particular weight, but just moving them influences and releases these cytokines. And each of these lists there that you see of different organs would be a different paper published as the more and more research is done about asking the question, why does exercise improve the quality of health of the human body? And again, I emphasize that all the cells communicate with other cells, and they do it by these little molecules called cytokines. And when it comes from the muscle, we call it myokine. Next slide, please. I started out by saying they asked the question, why does exercise improve health? And what we found out is that the dietary supplement that I've been working with, which currently we call New Eden, which for simple terms, I say puts back into the diet or restores to the diet nutrient molecules that used to be in the family garden, in the family orchard, with the plant growing on soil that has up to 70 minerals to optimize the nutrition of the plant. And the produce is allowed to ripen on the plant. And as you particularly can tell with tomatoes, there's probably no better example of the difference in vine ripened tomatoes and how succulent and it's almost a melody of flavors from a plant matured tomato versus one that's picked green, so it could be firm and hard and can be shipped and have shipping life and shelf life. And they hold them in the back of the market until they get red enough to fool you. But boy, you can't fool the taste, because the Rutgers laboratory is very strong in the agricultural area, and they have analyzed the juice of a vine ripened tomato versus a green picked tomato, and why did it taste so much better? And they say there are about 200 micronutrients in the vine ripened tomato that allows the genes of the plant to put the nutrient molecules in there that, lo and behold, your genes that control cellular synthesis of a little assembly line that's in each cell, that you hook together nutrients under the instructions that's in the DNA or the chromosomes. And by restoring to the diet these molecules, because at one time when they were going to have, say, supply tomatoes to the markets, if it was a red tomato on the plant, they'd have to throw it on the ground because it would be rotten by the time it got to the store. Well, now in the current era, that vine ripened tomato can be rushed to the commercial freeze dryer, and it's reduced to a powder, And this powder can be put into a dietary supplement such as New Eden, and you get the nutrients that the plant makes that the human cell calls for in cellular synthesis to make bioactive molecules. And all these myokines are bioactive molecules, and you can't make them unless you have in your diet these critical molecules that by freeze drying and plant maturing that we put in the powder that makes New Eden. And that's why many a person that adds this to their diet say New Eden. They say, oh, it's a miracle. I've had this problem for days, months, years, and all of a sudden it's corrected. None of the medicines I've taken have helped it. And they say it's a miracle. And I try to tell them it's not a miracle. What we're doing is very simple, is that the plant kingdom has molecules, nutrient molecules that the animal kingdom call for, which includes humans, to be necessary in cellular synthesis to hook together to make bioactive molecules in the biochemistry of the whole body. And of course, these molecules that are in plant matured powders are in New Eden that support, and this is why we find out, for example, that athletes have more endurance, they are more accurate with this, like in golfers and in tennis players, they are more accurate. The different organs of the body, including the eye, and the neuromuscular activity is coordinated better when all these little myokines go and influence the distant organs. And this is all improved by more comprehensive nutrition that supplies what the body needs to make these little cytokines or myokines that circulate around to the different organs. And right now, something that's very important that's going on that I think will do far more than I've tried to do the last 39 years of trying to tell people the importance of nutrition in their diet, is that the National Geographic Society issued 5 grants to an individual named Dan Brutner to look for places on Earth where people were active and in good health, at least to their 90 years, and often live past 100 years. And on the island of Sardinia, they found out that's an island just west of Italy in the Mediterranean Sea. There was a researcher from one of the colleges there studying the fact that there were people up in the mountains that their lives were very much like it was in Roman times, because they didn't have electricity and they didn't have motors. If you went anywhere, you walked. They were walking up and down hills, taking care of flocks of animals and fishing. And, if you don't have electricity, you chop wood for fire. And they were getting exercise in their daily work, but they all had gardens and they ate vine ripened fruits and vegetables. And the fact is, the island of Okinawa has more men living over 100 than any other place. That's one of the blue zones. And what the National Geographic Society, I get at least 2 or 3 emails a week informing me of things that they have found in these blue zones that contribute to good health. And they have written 5 books, and they have their own TV channel for National Geographic, and they have a sequence on Netflix trying to inform people of the importance of more comprehensive nutrition combined with exercise. There's actually synergism. We found out with New Eden, just added to your diet can increase telomeres, which are the caps on the end of chromosomes that naturally get shorter as we age. However, if you add the active ingredient from the aloe plant that's in New Eden to your diet, these telomeres are elongated. And the importance of the telomeres is that people that live to be 90 and 100 or older have long telomeres instead of short ones. And families where people die of a chronic disease, say between 55 and 70, have short telomeres. And that's also present in the animal kingdom. Animals that have short lifetimes have short telomeres. Animals that have long lifetimes have long telomeres. Well, all of this is being brought about, and this is why the blue zones exist. And in all the blue zones, the individuals are getting exercise in their daily activities. They have the personal garden where they get these vine ripened molecules, nutrients that, like in the exercise, you have to have these nutrients to make these little molecules that are myokines. And I believe the public information and distribution of the National Geographic Society about blue zones is going to do more to improve health because I have now 39 years focused on the active ingredient from the aloe plant, this acetylated mannose that increases the length of these telomeres. And this, we have been seeing various degrees of this blue zone phenomenon of being more active and in better health as you get older. And it's due to the fact that these telomeres are being elongated, which are not only longer when you age in good health, but these telomeres protect the genes or the chromosomes from damage. And this may be why we get reports of individuals that are being treated for a malignancy, whether it's leukemia, lymphoma, or cancer, that if they add this as nutrition for the normal cells in the body, the medical people are giving toxic activity, whether it's radiation or chemotherapy, to attack the abnormal cells. Right. All we do is just increase the nutritional supply to the normal cells, and there are a lot more normal cells in the body than there are malignant cells. And these people have improved quality of life while they're being treated. And this was seen in 100 patients by an oncologist from the Mayo Clinic training. And this is a part of the fact that we have got good evidence that adding this acetylated mannose to the diet plus exercise is synergistic. And I'll give you an example. I had a 72-year-old woman that her results came back that her telomeres were long, much like a 10 to 15-year-old female. My first thought, it was a laboratory error. So I checked with the laboratory in Houston, and their quality control and their standards were all in proper. And so with hesitation, I shared the results with this 70-year-old female because I felt like something must be wrong. Lo and behold, she told me that 3 times a week she swims 3 miles. So wow. 3 times a week she was someone. So this exercise combined with more comprehensive nutrition that includes the active ingredient from the aloe plant, acemannan, is very beneficial It's 2 + 2 is more than 4, and I don't know
Right.
much more than 4, but this is why exercise combined with more comprehensive nutrition gets you better results. Next slide, please.
Absolutely.
Is that the last slide, or
There's one more here.
yeah?
No, we still have a few more.
Okay, this is what I was just got through telling you, that the telomeres are elongated by the active aloe-ace mannan that's in New Eden, and these are caps on the chromosome chains, and they protect the DNA or the genes from damage. And the worst damage is a mutation where free radicals attach to the DNA, and it alters the information there. And one of these alterations can be become malignant cells. And this may be why we get such good results by adding the dietary supplement to the diet for the normal cells. We don't treat, cure, mitigate disease. All we do is increase the supply of nutrient molecules that the genes need to make bioactive molecules. And all of this activity is down at the element or the molecule or the ion level, which is a microcosmos too small for human intervention or participation. It's carries on at a level that you can't even detect with electron microscope. It's so small. And of course, telomere lengths, the gold standard for anti-aging research. And they are long, and people that live to be 100 are centenarians. That their telomeres are short naturally with aging, because every time our cells divide, the telomeres get shorter if you don't have more comprehensive nutrition. And I pointed out that families that between 75 and 55, and they die of chronic disease, have short telomeres. And that we have found, and we're increasing our number of patients so that we can finally publish this, that the aloe-ace mannan lengthens telomeres, and that you combine this with the exercise, like the 72-year-old lady I told you about, that I thought something was absolutely wrong because I didn't know her full history. But here she was swimming 3 miles 3 times a week. And not very many people are going to do that. But if you, we have a gentleman that is in his late 60s that walks his dog about 4 or 5 times a day, and his telomeres are very long. And
Wow.
this is just a graph to tell you some more about telomeres. You can see that the telomeres is the cap on the end of your chromosome.
Okay.
You have 46 pairs or 23 individuals hooked together in a helix. And as you age, normal, the telomeres get shorter. And, you know, just what is this cap composed of? And this shows that that this cap is DNA, which is adenine and thymidine, guanidine and cytosine in this cap. And apparently, if you have aloe-ace mannan added to your diet, it fosters the synthesis of these telomeres getting longer instead of shorter as you age. And one of the reasons we know it's not RNA, because if it was RNA, uracil would be in place of thymidine, is the point there. So it's made up of the 4 nucleic acids that make up the chromosomes, with all the information for the code of life that controls cellular synthesis of how you hook together nutrient molecules that influence the biochemistry and are utilized in the biochemistry of life. So this is, if telomeres is a new word for you, this gives you a little idea about this. And this is some of our current research. And the ones at the bottom are the ones that have a regular routine exercise program. And up there at the top, one of those at the 85 is that my telomeres, because I don't exercise like I ought to, is my telomeres of that about a 30 to 40-year-old male instead of
Wow.
an 85-year-old male. But if you go down there and you see where we see the second one there, a individual that was 82 years old that for decades was in special forces in the army, and they had daily conditioning. They even swam the English Channel. Well, his telomeres are that of a 10 to 20-year-old, and
Wow.
each one of these there, we see the one walking the dog. We see
Mhm.
an individual that's a vegetarian, is also a gym director, and his are 10 to 20. So you get about 10 to 20 more years of telomere lengthening by combining more comprehensive nutrition as the approximately 14 ingredients in the New Eden with exercise. And when we get to about 30 of these, we think that according to the medical school, we can publish this. But of interest there is that we have one that's female at the top that has severe autoimmune disease and has symptoms every day, and her telomeres are about the same length as her
Mhm.
age because severe disease. And then we see that 71-year-old that had post-traumatic stress disorder. He was a medic in special forces in Vietnam, and he has lymphoma of the liver, and he had problems from Agent Orange exposure. And
Wow.
71, and his telomeres are so short of that about an 85 to a 90-year-old. So disease shortens your telomeres and can overrun. Of course, I don't know. These two individuals are too debilitated to have an exercise program. They do well to get through every day.
Yeah.
But we're seeing that chronic disease shortens telomeres, which is unhealthy, and that more comprehensive nutrition is available in the New Eden Plus exercise program, whether it's walking the dog or swimming or I think it's very interesting. The 57-year-old there is a physician in California that his telomeres are 9.87 value, and
Mhm.
he is a marathoner and triathlon several times a year. And every week, he either does 2 miles on a bicycle, and the next week he will run a half marathon. And you can notice his telomeres are that of about a 10 to 20-year-old.
Wow.
He's 57. So this is just our early proof that this exercise, releasing all these myokines, influence all the organs of the body to work better. So this is not just limited to the muscles, but all the bodies of the cell release molecules that modulate to stimulate or suppress other organs in the body. But fact is, I end with the slide that Hippocrates was a physician in ancient Greece. His father, grandfather, and two sons were all Greek physicians, and they were taught that diseases were punishment from the gods from the Elysian plains. We're like puppets down here. And Hippocrates did a series of autopsies and said, no, no, no. This is one of the reasons he's called the father of Western medicine. He said that there's something wrong, terribly wrong inside the body. And if you go on Google for sayings of Hippocrates, and I might add that this was out of sync with what Greek physicians believed and taught. And so they had a arrangement with the priests in the temple that since this felt like disease was due to punishment from the gods, they would tell them to either make a small, moderate, or a big contribution to certain uh, t- uh, priests at the temples, and that they would get well. Well, that was you scratch my back and I'll scratch your type of relationship. And so when Hippocrates started a little medical school teaching young physicians what he believed, that there was something wrong in the body, and that just how he came to this next statement that is available on your Google, on your computer. He wrote, if we could provide optimal nutrition and exercise, optimal nutrition and exercise. This is from a period before our calendar started. Then he says, comma, not too much, not too little. It would be the safest pathway to good health would be provided. Then he wrote beneath this, let your food be your medicine and your medicine your food. Well, I have showed you today the research that started in about 2004 of asking the question, why is exercise healthy in the body? And I showed you evidence of the different myokines that the exercise cells release that influence all the other organs in the body. And even Hippocrates was a little late, because 5,000 years ago in Ezekiel 47:12, it talks about the fruits and vegetables being provided by Yahweh for nutrition for the individuals. And it ends with the leaves of the trees will be for, depending on the translation, either drugs, medicine, or for illness. That's 5,000 years ago. They had that insight. It was so obvious. But if you won't listen to the Old Testament and the Jewish scribes, and the New Testament in Revelations 22:2, it speaks of the water flowing beneath the throne inside the Holy of Holies inside the temple, that it was nourishing, and it flowed out down the rivers to the creeks and to the orchards and to the gardens, and that they produced every month of the year rather than just once a year. And it ends with the leaves of the trees will be for the healing of the nations. Well, what I've shared with you today is why Hippocrates observed that exercise was benefit. And for years, everybody was saying exercise makes you healthy. Well, I've shared with you what the muscles release that influences all the other organs in the body to work better. And so you can go away from this that more comprehensive nutrition combined with exercise is health promoting. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Have you seen some of the recent videos or statements or interviews that Robert F. Kennedy has been doing, talking about the nutrition crisis in America and um, the health, how big pharma has taken over our food industry, and the attention that he's kind of drawing to that? And do you think that will make a change, or that people could start listening to some of that?
Unfortunately, I think that because politicians have eroded our confidence in them, that what he's saying is true. And yes, I have noticed what he's saying, because our healthcare costs in the United States is the highest of all the nations in the United Nations. There are about 100 different nations there. And it's last figures I had, it's about, trying to think how much, several $100s per individual per year,
Okay.
and it's rising rapidly because of the cost of medications and seeing the doctor. And it's a significant cost of Medicare, Medicaid, and more and more people are coming to the realization. Fact is, General Motors put out a thing that they spend more on health care for their retired and active employees than they do on what it costs to make a vehicle. And this is getting run away. And more and more people are saying something's got to be done. Well, the evidence is growing that more comprehensive nutrition combined with routine exercise. Unfortunately, we have vehicles and public transportation, and do not, electricity running so many things. I frequently talk about my grandmother. I saw her chop wood, put it around a big black uh, pot filled with water and a washboard to do the weekly wash. Well, that's contrasted with my mother, who went to a washateria where they had Maytag washers that did what you did with the washing board, and you let the hot water run into the machine. But you did have the labor of moving the wash clothes through the wringer into the different tubs, and then wringing them out, and then taking them, put them on the clothesline. Well, my wife doesn't have, we don't even have a clothesline.
Right.
Just pops it in the top of the washer, adds a little powder, and it's washed, and then puts it over in the dryer that spins it around, and out comes the clothes. And the amount of labor that electricity makes possible is that you have to, and you can do it at home. You can have
Right. You didn't even have to haul it to the washateria or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, you don't even have to buy a treadmill. You can walk. If you walk 3 miles a week, 3 times, that's enough to increase. If you have a good diet, which we emphasize where my research has been done,
Mm-hmm.
that we can really reduce healthcare costs, particularly in this time of inflation. You talk about gas prices doubling or more, and every item in the grocery store is significantly increased. They say it's an average of 20 to 50%, depending on what it is. Eggs went from about $2 to about $6 or $8 for a
Yes.
while.
Yeah.
And I think it's gotten better. But in a time of inflation, that the cost of drugs and going to the doctor's office, and lo and behold, if you have to go to the hospital, you may have to spend the rest of your life to be able to pay the cost of going to the hospital if you don't have a health insurance. And if you spend any time in ICU, that's so expensive that you can labor for a lifetime, and all your savings and your retirement plan, and it's not, you can't make enough money to pay for being in an ICU very many days in hospitalization. But with more comprehensive combined with exercise, you can improve the quality of health, and it's preventive against diseases of chronic nature, which can end your life or make you feel miserable and wish you could end your life,
Right.
and just barely hang on. You can improve your quality of life with more comprehensive nutrition combined with sane exercise.
Staying exercise. Words of wisdom from Dr. Reg McDaniel. Well, thank you so much for all this great information. It was really encouraging. The weather's starting to cool off, so everybody, you have no excuses. Get out there, walk, get your 3 miles in, and definitely check out New Eden. There's a link in the description of this video. You can get your auto ship. That's the best way to buy it because you get a discount that way, and you get a box of free probiotic for a month's supply with your auto ship. And you can also send a message to Dr. Reg at wellnessquest.org with your information about any oh gosh, help me, Dr. Reg, deviations from normal in your health.
Yeah.
And he might have a report for you where he might have some studies that he can share with you for more information. So,
Well, I was absolutely amazed to find out this research on myokines, that our muscles, skeletal muscles, were contributing like this to improve health, and why exercise is so health promoting.
oh, it's wonderful, wonderful to share all this information with everybody. So please share this video to get more information out to the public. We want to share this great information that Dr. Reg has. And you can find more videos on my YouTube channel. Click the wellness button and check out the whole playlist. So thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Reg.
Thank you.